Thanks for staying with Morning Edition. The business of content and the advancement of regional telecommunications is on the agenda for the upcoming conference. An upcoming conference called, what's it called?
Business of Content.
The Business of Content. With us in the studio this morning is Atiba Phillips. Welcome.
Thank you
From
so much.
Infocom Technologies Limited. And you're hosting this conference together with CANTO, the Caribbean Association of National Telecommunication Organizations. What's it all about, the business of content, e-content?
Well, Felipe, as you know, most Caribbean countries are waking up to the realization that ICT is a key pillar of the attempt to diversify economies. They need to grapple with this whole digital economy thing and integrate into the world system. And we, as a region, have moved in towards the proliferation of things like broadband and cell phones and computers and so on. But what happens after we've connected on that level? I mean, what we interact with, generally speaking, right now is foreign content out of the US, content out of the UK, etc. We need to start to build a dynamic here in the region and benefit from the economy of the internet, because people pay for content. That's why you get an internet connection, because you want to deal with something that's already there.
But let me ask you this. Okay, so ICT is information and communications technologies.
Correct.
We have infrastructure, we have access to infrastructure.
Right.
But what you're saying is that we are almost overwhelmed by foreign content.
Absolutely.
What incentives are being proposed or being introduced to produce good quality local content that will not only satisfy our viewers, our listeners, our internet surfers who have become almost addicted to foreign content in terms of a certain style, a certain look and feel, and even to look at beginning to export our content?
Well, let me just back up a little bit and give you some context. This particular it's a competition and a conference. And it comes out of a larger rubric called the Connect the Caribbean initiative. And my company, Infocom Technologies, was brought on along with CANTO to give a framework for how we would do that. What would that look like in the context of the Caribbean? This is a IT World Initiative.
Okay, so the International Telecommunications Union is sponsoring this initiative.
Well, IT is part of the UN, and there's a global compact to get the unconnected connected by 2015. So the Caribbean's response is championed by CANTO in this case. And we got together and asked, well, what would that mean for the Caribbean? So on one level, it's telecommunications, connectivity. We need to do some more of that in the region. But on another level, connecting the Caribbean means more than that. It means sharing who we are with each other and identity and the content so each country and each community needs to create and be able to share with each other what their aspirations are, what their struggles are, what their opportunities are on the business side, for example, and so that we can be more connected with each other. We know what's happening in Chile, with the miners and so on, but we don't really know what's happening in St. Vincent. Why was there a referendum there last year? We don't know the fact that St. Martin the Dutch side of St. Martin just got independence from Holland. Yeah? So we as a Caribbean community are not really connected in that sense. And technology, we feel, gives the most immediate functional opportunity for the Caribbean to be connected.
So tell us a little bit about the competition itself. What are the parameters? Who can participate?
Right. It's open to pretty much anyone. It's again looking at how would we generate this in the region. We thought about doing sort of a landscape study. Who's doing what? At what level of quality? What's the capacity that they have? All of that sort of stuff. And that would have required going all up and down the region, knocking on doors and so on. So what we've done is said, we're going to have a competition. We're going to go around the region, announce the competition. We're going to put a bunch of prize money up and cause people to come to us, basically.
But what kind of content are you looking for?
So the content categories, there are about 9 of them. It's government and so e-government, e-business type content. There's tourism, music and entertainment, agriculture, even health. There are others, other types of content like that. So we have, and it's also based on a global competition called the WSA competition.
What is that?
That's a global World Summit of Information Society competition that rewards e-content and m-content, mobile content applications around the world.
So are you looking at applications, or are you looking at the actual content?
Well,
because
both.
applications are what enable the devices you use like your BlackBerry or your laptop, or even the television program. These are all. What are the programs, the facilities that enable the content to be delivered, and then there's the actual content, whether it's animation, dealing with entertainment, music.
It's both. So from the way that we look at it, content, as you say, it's the what the person is going to interact with, but the application is the rules and so on around it that allow it to govern how you access it and how you interact with it and so on. So it's both, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we know that there's a lot of talent around the region. We know that I'm personally aware of, there's a particular guy in St. Vincent who's has no music background, but he's done a very impressive program that helps people learn how to play drum sets, which include the pan, for example. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's done it in a way that you can plug in other instruments, the guitar and the piano and the whatever. It's a brilliant application, but he has nowhere to go with it right now. You know, we have a lot of these folks who work on stuff, even at the corporate level, but I'll say at the individual level, work on stuff, and between them and their computer, they believe they're bright, but there's no forum, there's no ecosystem within which to plug in and cause their brilliance to be, plugged into a value chain. So we're getting the telecom companies to become aware of what's happening out there and start to create a dynamic.
So this is a marriage that has finally come where the telecommunications carriers who control the infrastructure are looking at sourcing content to be able to speak to each other and hopefully speak to the rest of the world with a Caribbean voice.
Correct.
But give us a little bit more detail, Atiba, in terms of who is eligible to participate in this competition, what kind of specs or specifications are needed to participate, when does it begin, when does it end, what kind of prizes are you offering?
Right. Well, the competition actually has already begun. It was launched on September the 30th. There's a website, www.cantoicreate.com. And we're looking at a finale in early February, along with the conference. And so submissions are going to close towards the end of the year. There's some amount of groundswell of support that may be extended till the end of January. And it's individuals, corporate entities as well, and groups. So you have groups at university students.
Are there different categories for entry? I mean, you have youth, for example. Do you have companies, large companies?
Correct. So
how do say media and entertainment companies fit into this competition?
Well, again, it's somewhat. It's the first year that we're doing it, so it's somewhat going to be based on the entries and the level of interest that we have, because there are a number of ways that we could stratify it beforehand. But we're going to see how things roll in.
So throw a wide net and see what you pull in, and then start to categorize.
Well. Yeah, in a sense.
And what kind of prizes are people looking at?
Well, it's in all, it's about US $30,000 in prizes. So it's a fair amount of money that we hope will draw some level of interest, in fact, a great level of interest. And then, of course, there's a conference after that.
All right, tell us about the conference.
The conference talks about, so, you'd have just seen what the Caribbean has to offer in terms of content. You see the brilliance and the lack of capacity in some areas. And we'll then be talking about, what are the mechanisms that we have to value content, for example? How do we get this thing funded? How the IP issues around content, how do we deal with that?
IP, you're talking about internet protocol or intellectual property?
Intellectual property issues.
I mean, IP could go either way in this business, right?
That's true. And then, and what kind of business models do we look toward, contracting with content owners, and then how do we get people to pay for it? Payment systems and micropayment systems and so on. And I think that all of these things are really important because they get back to the Minister of Education just sent out some laptops to people in Trinidad. Right. How are the young people? I just said that we were inundated with foreign content. What's happening on those laptops? How are they going to learn? Who's developing that content? Isn't that the basis of an industry in the region? I mean, that's just one.
You have a captive market, basically, of children. So we could, for example, be looking at animation, animated cartoons about Papa Bois and La Diablesse and things of that. So I'm just thinking off the top. But still, we're talking about content that's indigenous.
That's right.
And you're saying the competition is supposed to encourage that content to come forward.
That's right.
And then the point of departure is the conference, which now says, okay, these are the winners, or these are the entrants, the ones that we consider to be the most important. Who would be, other than the participants in the prize, or in the competition, are you going to be inviting any major international operators to come and participate in the conference, both as speakers and as scouts for talent, basically?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, this thing has global possibility. Once you're dealing with digital economy, once you're dealing with the internet, whatever you put out there is accessible by anybody. So, for example, in the media and entertainment, culture industries, we already have a brand. But what we need to do to take it to the next level really is to better integrate what we're doing on the culture side with what's happening in technology. Because people are not moving back to CDs and records and so on. Most of it is going digital, and it will continue to do that. So we have indeed made contact through, I think you know Josanne Leonard. She's helping us put together an international cast of people from mainly from the UK in this first instance, and I know we will move beyond that. That will link us to the diaspora, which is another huge market for content.
Caribbean diaspora. For
Caribbean diaspora, yeah. There's the international market, but there's also the diaspora that has a particular taste for our content. And already, because they're in those foreign countries, they're already trained and acculturized in terms of the technology savvy and paying for content online and accessing it in particular ways.
Atiba, excuse me, you would perhaps know and may not know this, but there's been a traditional attitude in a lot of the media and entertainment industries that, it costs too much to produce our own material. It's easier to import foreign material and just depend on that content. Is this are the media and communications and entertainment companies that are participating in this venture, not necessarily as entrants, but as facilitators, sponsors, do you detect a change in attitude in that philosophy?
Well, I think that would be a little presumptuous of me to say at this time, one way or the other. But I think that's where we want to get to, in the sense that while we use the model that we have now, there is, Trinidad and Tobago is one country, there are many of them up the archipelago. If we amalgamate that buying power, there's a leak out of the economy when we buy foreign material, and there's a residual, much smaller economy that happens in Trinidad, and that's on the media and entertainment broadcasting side, but it's also on the IP side, on the telecommunication bits and bytes side, because we get a lot of that foreign content on internet content as well.
Well, on that specific point, the question that came to my mind, and this is not to become too technical, but certainly most of our servers are outside of Trinidad and Tobago, outside of the Caribbean.
Right.
And if we develop more content, are we likely to see more servers being hosted within the region?
And all of those things are part of what we're going to talk about in the conference, yeah? Because, again, it's under the rubric of Connect the Caribbean. And so the content piece is one piece, but we also have to talk about the infrastructure on which that content, gets stored and is going to be supported and travels and so on. So, there's a conversation in the region about IXPs. There's a conversation about
IXPs for our listeners are switches for internet traffic.
Internet exchange points in the region, so that the traffic can remain in the region, and the economy that follows the traffic can also remain in the region.
I would like to point you to the fact that Cuba, long ago, had been involved in local production. In fact, they were the first country within the hemisphere, including the United States and Canada, to produce high-definition content. Okay. So they have a model. They don't have the financial resources, but they certainly have a lot of cultural resources and content that you could look to as an example that might be able to give you some guidelines. Yeah. I want to wish you a great deal of success with the upcoming competition and conference. And can you just repeat one more time, if people want to participate, where can they go? Is there a specific website, a number that they can call?
Definitely. There's the website, once again, is www.cantoicreate.com, and they can they can also call the Canto Secretariat. I believe the number is 622-7448. And there are a number of other numbers that they can call, which are, I believe, on the website as well.